Hey Zach, did you get that video edited?
It's complicated.
Dude, we need the video soon.
No, it's complicated.
What are you talking about?
Well, I rolled a complication on my motivation check and, well, please send help.
Sule! It's finally here. Stormlight lovers and tabletop junkies rejoice. The Cosmere RPG is officially launched and, well, I have a lot of thoughts. Today, I'm going to give you my initial review of the Stormlight RPG, and I'm not pulling any punches. There will be minor plot spoilers for the Stormlight Archive in this review. Also, 71% of you aren't subscribed to this channel. It's okay, Sully. I know you forgot to hit the button. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. Zach and I had the opportunity to play the Say the Words one-shot with some of our other YouTube friends last month, and I have to say, wow. As a longtime Dungeons & Dragons and Dungeon World player and GM, the Stormlight RPG introduces some awesome updates to an already highly developed format. The game uses a 20-sided die, or D20, based system, so it's far more like D&D in this regard. All the same basic features you'd expect are there. Advantage, critical hits, and fails, sorta, we'll get to those later. Movement, speed, and armor classes. Yes, you have 3. All of this leads to a very familiar and comfortable experience for a D&D 5e convert. Also, the rules don't bog down a player too much, leaving a good bit of room for some roleplay. Let's talk more about that in a moment. First, I want to shout out the awesome team over at the Metalworks. If you don't know who they are, this is a group of developers who have taken on the task of integrating the Cosmere RPG into Foundry VTT. These guys did an incredible job to make this world come to life on your computer screen. I want to give a special thanks to Doxson for running our one-shot and helping us set up our versions of Foundry, and also to the Flying Pig for reaching out to us and organizing the event. And of course, thanks to everyone else on the team who made this easily our favorite way to absorb this content. We will be linking all of their information in the description of this video. Okay, back to the review. This game has one of the most inspired TTRPG mechanics I have ever seen, turn speed. You thought I was going to say plot die. You clearly haven't sat through an 8-player level 1 D&D pod fighting direwolves and trying to figure out why their cool new illusion cantrip doesn't insta-win them the conflict. Yeah, as I was saying, this game has an awesome new system for combat where each round, each player can select whether they want to take a fast turn or a slow turn. Fast player characters get 2 actions, while slow players get 3. Certain abilities require 3 actions to spend, and that means a fast turn could prevent you from accessing your full arsenal. Also, with movement being an action now, ranged attackers have so much more control of their turns, and it makes strategic placement that much more important. Regardless, the increased flexibility gives you more agency and creativity when planning out what your character will do. The actual best part about the mechanic, though, is the removal of initiative. Fast players always move before fast enemy NPCs, who always move before slow players, who always move before slow enemies. Within each of these 4 initiative brackets, players can decide who should go first. This means you no longer have to make the healing cleric who rolled a nat 20 sit around and twiddle their thumbs while the barbarian hasn't even had time to rage yet. This was always an annoyingly unrealistic part of D&D-like games. I believe this system not only improves the freedom and feel of combat, but also the speed. If you're ready, you can go first. If you need time to figure out your actions, take a slow turn. Okay, fine, I'll talk about the plot die now. And that's because it's awesome. The plot die is a 6-sided die with 2 blank sides, 2 complications, and 2 opportunities. These complications and opportunities are almost always up to the GM to work into a scene. A complication will add to a player's die result by either 2 or 4, but as the name implies, something will now be going wrong in the encounter. Maybe you succeed in shooting an arrow, hit your target, but the Everstorm can now be seen flashing red lightning in the distance. Opportunities work in a similar way, opening up potentially good things for the player, but these results don't add anything to your roll. The coolest part of the plot die is just how optional it is. You can get complications from critical fails and opportunities from natural 20 rolls, but the GM can have the player add the plot die to any roll. This means that the GM could have a good moment for a complication, and it now leaves the player to see if that happens or not. It really is an immensely helpful tool for GMs, and that's good because I don't think this game will be easy to run. More on that later. The final mechanic I want to discuss is the tech tree style level up system. Each path has a tree of branching abilities that any traditional TTRPG or video gamer will instantly recognize. This is an absolutely brilliant way to break up the modern style of class systems and allow players to control what abilities they're investing their new levels into. It honestly reminds me a lot of the Dungeon World move system, where you can pick what new tool you add to your belt, but you also need to plan ahead to work towards prerequisites for stronger abilities. Not only do we have 9 radiant paths, each with their own branching trees, but there are also a number of regular paths you can take, or heroic paths. I've seen very little of the actual level up mechanics play out at this this point, but I feel like the ability system will allow for some highly specialized playstyles, which will, of course, lead to some epic moments in game. Though I do worry you might accidentally spec yourself into abilities that do not synergize well, but I'll have to play a lot more to see. Speaking of epic moments, let's talk about the other half of an RPG. Holy roleplay, Batman! You don't realize just how cool it is to jump into the world of Stormlight until you actually start playing this game. The characters in the world, much like Brandon's protagonists, are generally going to be more important than your average Joe. Characters can swear ideals or set up goals that will eventually lead them to becoming unoathed shard bearers. This is pretty in line with other TTRPGs, as even level 1 characters are typically above average in some regard. Seeing a dorky archer recruit explode with Stormlight in the middle of their first firefight and then stick a fuse to the wall with an arrow is, well, it's inspiring. You feel like you can do this with just about anything in this game, and though I've only played low levels, I think higher level players will absolutely feel powerful. I also appreciate that this game allows for less than morally upstanding gameplay. You can work with the Coalition, play as a singer, or heck, even be an odium-serving Skybreaker. There's a lot of opportunity to justify either side of the conflict. There is a lot more I could talk about here and a lot more good in the game, but I honestly need a bit more experience with it to go too more in depth. Now, unfortunately, I would be remiss if I didn't mention some of my major concerns with this game. Shout out to all my GM heroes out there, but this game may not be a good place to try out the role for the first time. There are some pretty big hurdles a first-time GM will have to face in the RPG that may be a little too overwhelming for some. Firstly, this RPG takes smack dab in the middle of the Stormlight Archive. Roshar is at war, the Everstorm is raging, but what that means is there are massive conflicts happening everywhere. If you're a huge Stormlight fan, you may actually feel pretty restricted in what you can even do. For example, it'd be really cool to play a campaign in Kolinar while Queen Aestodon is being manipulated and riots are forming, but you also already know the end of that story. You can follow after events in the story or make your own way, but making memorable moments in an existing story where the whole world is conquered, well, each game will eventually lead to that conclusion. You'll likely find yourself breaking from canon after just a while to keep things interesting. More on that later, though. Also, game masters might find it pretty difficult to set up meaningful conflicts. This world is at full-scale war. Thalen Field, the Siege of Kolinar, the invasion of Urithiru, and, oh, I don't know, the Shattered Plains? This isn't the kind of place you just stumble into a rogue band of goblins who happen to be serving a hag. If you really want to play out meaningful stories, I feel like players are going to be isolated to the fringes of Roshar. I just don't feel like this is a great environment for adventurers to play a long-term campaign with a meaningful outcome without upsetting some players' status quo. I also have some major concerns about the Knights Radiant in the RPG. Obviously, everyone wants to become a 4th ideal Windrunner or Lightweaver, but what if you don't? We see in the universe that Adolin is constantly struggling to keep up with Kaladin and Shallan, but would that same dynamic be fun as a player? Imagine being the hunter and landing a huge shot, fatally wounding the BBEG, but just then the Elsecaller swears their 2nd ideal, and the whole conflict now focuses on them. I just don't think you can have a party of players with some Radiance and some not, and still make it feel fun long-term for everyone. I don't want to spoil the Say the Words one-shot, but read its freaking name. Radiants are the only players with magic, they start off with more abilities, and they require GM intervention in their best moments, taking a lot of attention away from other players. Now, I had a great time with the one-shot only playing the hunter, but I wouldn't see that group dynamic working well for a whole campaign. On the other side of things, if all the players play Radiance, the GM has to keep all those relationships special. It seems like a lot. Also, the Spren pose a big problem. If a player wants to go a specific direction with their Spren, then they will have to roleplay that conversation with themselves? Or if the GM is controlling the Spren, then they might just use it as another avenue to railroad the player where they want them to go. I feel like you need to have a very talented GM to make any of these situations work, and I think many new players might feel isolated when their idea for a new character goes out the window due to a stubborn true Spren. Okay, I know that was a lot of negative in a row, but I have a solution for this. I think most player groups need to have a session 0 conversation about keeping their game non-canon. Just have fun. Let your Shardbearer kill Odium with a Dawn Shard. Let your Dustbringer level Urithiru. Let your Edge Dancer eat Yellignar and use them to beat Rock in an arm wrestling match. Let it be fun, dang it! This game is not meant to be your chance to add fanfic to the Stormlight Archive. Or maybe it is. You do you. But really, this is meant to be just that. A game. GMs, don't ruin your player's game because, actually, you couldn't be in Herodaz at this time due to the geopolitical climate between your nations. Players, don't be afraid to do dumb things. Let this game be fun. And please, 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 let us know all about your cool interactions in the comments below. The last thing I want to touch on is the future of this game. Brotherwise and Dragonsteel have made it clear that this is going to be a game that grows as the Cosmere does. As more awesome investiture becomes available to players, the balance of cool and power will be a much easier pill to swallow. The basic rules here are solid, and I am personally so excited to see what is next when we get the Mistborn RPG in the coming years. I think the restrictions will really start to go away as more and more systems are added to this game. You'll have more flexibility with timelines, locations, and powers. But what do you think? Will you be excited the 20th time a Windrunner swears their first ideal? Are you going to canonize any crazy theories in your Roshar? How How often will Hoyd show up in your campaigns? Anyway, thanks for watching. Please subscribe and let me know what you think in the comments below. Kolo?